Hey guys, it's Michael. I had a long week. It's been a lot. As you guys know, the murder trial for my mother's death ended this week, and we got a guilty verdict. Yay, we did it. And this man has been sentenced to felony murder and elder neglect, and he received a prison sentence of life in prison. And I've gotten so many questions of people who really don't know the backstory, really didn't know what happened. I'm going to go into that a little bit because I wanted you guys to get the complete picture of what happened. There was a lot of things I didn't even know that happened, and I'm not going to get too gory, but I am going to give you an overview of some of the things that we were told and that we experienced through the trial. First of all, it was just a long, drawn-out process. Every day was 8 to 9 hours a day. I wasn't allowed in the courtroom, so the only way you can get it is by either other people or you can get it by video, transcripts later, all those things. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot of things that I didn't even know happened to my mother. You know, I do know that she suffered extremely, and I think that's the hardest part for me. It's one thing if you have a parent that passes away, but it's another thing if you learn that they suffered like an animal or worse than an animal. So I'm going to go into a little bit of it just so you can get the backstory for the people who don't know, and for the people who do know, just know that I appreciate everything, every prayer. I mean, so many of you cried with me after this, and it took me a few days just to be able to really talk because I had to get my mind right. And it was like my whole nervous system was just like shot because I had been through so much mentally. And so, you know, a little bit of a backstory about my mother. Obviously, she was a beautiful, intelligent woman. I was her only child, and she was an executive at Xerox, just ran up the ranks. She started at 23 at Xerox and ended up retiring there. So she went all the way from salesperson all the way up to an executive. And so she was making, 7-figure earner. She met this guy, Gary. He was younger than her, and he didn't have much. So my mother basically took care of him. She bought him cars. She, let him move into her home. All the things, she just took care of him. And we liked him originally. He seemed like a cool guy. My mother and I we took a real estate class together. We both passed. We were going to start a real estate business once she retired from Xerox. And during the time that she was getting ready for a presentation, she had a brain aneurysm. The brain aneurysm rendered her paralyzed on one side of her body, her left side. And from that point on, our lives were never the same. I had to take care of her for 2 years. And it was good. I had her walking. We took her to Emory 3 days a week. We were doing therapy, physical and occupational. I mean, we had to make her practice opening and closing her hand. We were making her walk to the kitchen to eat. Like, she was getting on her feet. During that time, however, Gary kind of snuck in. I was out of town, and he took her down to the courthouse, revoked my power of attorney, and took her in to stay with him. And I was really irritated. I was upset. I went to the courts. I called the police. I did all the things to try to get my mother out of the house. She wouldn't go. She said she wanted to be in her house, which I understood, but she wanted to, be with her boyfriend. And I'd seen my mother in domestic situations before, so we were just like, kind of trying to monitor the situation, but he was making it very difficult. He was isolating her. He pushed her out of her family, slowly over time. Eventually, I wasn't able to see my mother. I called, when I kept hearing little rumors of things that was happening to her, I called, CPS on elder abuse. I called the police. I called lawyers. I tried to get her out. Like they said, I had 65 calls, which is crazy, but that's how I felt. I was like desperate to get her out of that situation because I kept hearing he was giving her alcohol, and he was verbally abusive and different things. And I caught him one time and I almost hit him in the head with a coffee pot. You guys already know me. They had to drag me off of him. But anyway, that caused him to even isolate me from her even more. So at the end of the day, I didn't have that relationship with my mother because I refused to go through a guy to talk to my mother, and I felt like that he, kept poisoning her mind towards me, saying that I was stealing from her, although he was the one who was stealing from her, and he wanted to flip it around to keep her and me from seeing each other. Anyway, towards the end, he stopped taking her at all to any sort of doctor's visits, therapy. Apparently he hadn't took her about 1.5 years of her last life. He said she was bedridden suddenly, so she couldn't walk, she couldn't do anything, or even sit up to get in her wheelchair. So at that point, she's laying down. She developed bed sores, and so the way she died was really horrible and brutal. It was worse than any animal. So she had like 16 holes in her body. She was frozen. She had hypothermia because her body temperature was 85 degrees. The doctor said they had never seen anything like that. He called 911 one day and just was saying that he tried to change her, and she had fallen on the floor, and he was just saying that she was just foaming at the mouth. And when they got there, it was the most horrendous scene they ever seen. My mother was naked on the floor. She had been there obviously for days. Come to find out, it was probably for weeks. In her own feces from her chest all the way to underneath her toenails. Her toenails were 4 inches long. Her hair was one big dread, matted with mold and possibly bugs in it. And she had holes through her body. One was as big as a dinner plate on her back. And her diaper had been welded onto her skin. So when you try to take it off, it took her skin off. It had been on so long. He had an empty toilet sitting next to the bed that he threw cigarette ashes in. He didn't even bother to put her on the toilet, nor did he bother to change her diapers. There were 26 boxes of unopened diapers in the house. Not one of them was put on her. His clothes were nice and neat and hung up, and her clothes were pretty much non-existent. So anyway, when she died, she actually died of sepsis, shock, and an overdose of some of her medication. So this was disturbing when I found this out, and the hospital called me. I lived in Tennessee at the time, so I was in another state, and I tried consistently. I'd been writing letters. She went to Kettestone Hospital the year before, and I tried to beg them not to send her home, and they did. That's another future talk we're going to be having. And I ended up just, coming back to Georgia to handle her affairs. And it's been tough finding out all the stuff. But the one wonderful thing that happened was my mother kept journals. He didn't know about them. There were 7 of them, and she detailed all of the nasty and gruesome things he did to her. He told her she was a germ. He told her he hated the sound of her voice. He told her, don't ask him for anything ever. Now, mind you, he's isolated her from everyone at this point. No one's seen her for the last year that she was alive. He called her a germ. He said that he didn't want to hear, so he put earplugs in his ears. She said he would leave her on the toilet for 4 hours at a time until she said she passed clots. So there was a lot more detail. I don't want to get into it, but she was just miserable. She said, "Help me, God," a lot. She prayed in the journal, and he didn't know this. He thought she was writing recipes down. So thank God we found those after her death, and my mother's journals told her own story in court. So she was a big witness, and I was blessed that that happened. But also there was dozens of EMT workers. They threw up when they saw my mom. They said she was the worst they saw or smelled. And the hospital people remembered her. They were just saying it was a nightmare that she came in that, and she was still alive when she first came in. They said they'd never seen anybody that cold with that much damage to their body that was still alive. So she was put on life support, and eventually she died, probably a short time. They arrested him. He denied everything. He said the reason why he did all this is because his back hurt and couldn't pick her up off the floor. So he made her comfortable and put a blanket on her. His back hurt. So that was his reasoning for leaving her on the floor for weeks. So can you imagine, like, you're on the floor and you can't get up, can't move, and the person you love is in bed, And they're eating and they're drinking and they're watching TV and they're sleeping and they're waking up and they're cleaning themselves up and they're getting dressed and they're doing all that stepping over you. And so these are the type of things that we had to learn in court. We had to learn that, you know, her toenails were 4 inches long. You know, there's so many things. Like, there was a dog in the room in a cage, and the dog was dying. 2 or 3 dogs died under his care. And what he'd do to punish the dogs if they used the bathroom was to leave them in the cage until they died. So he basically did that to my mom. So it's unfortunate when you learn, I mean, it's hard enough to have a parent die, but then to have them killed by another person and to know that they suffered has been tremendously tough. You know, I'm happy that he's in jail. I'm happy that he is going to face the penalty for what he did. Hopefully other people will make him face those penalties too. Hopefully he won't have one comfortable night in prison. But that's not going to bring my mom back, you know. And I wish, you know, I tried to call over 60 times. They reported like 60 calls from me to Adult Protective Services, but they didn't do anything. So that's my next step, to go after them. They avoided the subpoena, so they didn't come to court. And I'm going to make sure that the right people who need to be responsible for this are held responsible, including Gary. Because there were a lot of people who avoided coming to see my mother, coming to check on her. And these are law enforcement officials and people I called that dropped the ball. And so they failed her as well. But, you know, if you have your mom, hold her tight. If you have a relationship with, love on her. You know, I wish I could call my mother. My mother left me a voicemail I still play to this day. You know, she's like, don't worry about me. If anything happened, I'd make sure you knew. And she wasn't able to. My mother had a life alert. He left it next to his side of the bed, so my mother couldn't even call for help, even though she had that access. And she paid for it out of her credit card monthly. So this man honestly took everything from her. He took her from us. My mother has grandkids and now great-grandkids that she'll never get to see grow up. You know, but what I said in court is what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave a legacy for her. And I'm going to, you know, I'm my mother's daughter. I'm going to make sure that I carry on her legacy. I'm going to make sure that I bless as many people as I can. I'm going to make sure that her kids know her grandkids and great-grandkids know who she was. And I'm going to make sure that I, you know, give back. That's why I started the Elder Home Health Care Agency in her honor and her name, because I don't want anybody else's parent to suffer the way my mother suffered. I am going to make a difference. I'm going to impact and change lives, because that's what my mother would have wanted. She always said, I think you're going to be somebody great. And so that's what I'm praying, that, you know, through her memory, I can make a difference. I am starting a women's support group. You guys have seen me gone through a lot over the last, oh my gosh, 10 years since I got a divorce after over 20 years of marriage. And you guys saw my son get shot. You saw my daughter bullied. We created a campaign. You guys saw my mother killed. I mean, you guys have seen me going through it, but you've also seen me overcoming it. And I have grown stronger through all these things. My faith has centered me. And the support and the love of my friends and family. I just thank you guys, and I appreciate it. And I got big things coming because I want to make a difference, and that's my goal. So I'm going to start an organization called S.C.A.L.E, and S.C.A.L.E stands for Surviving, Overcoming, Acceptance, and Rebuilding. And it's for women who are 40 plus, like myself at one time when I came and my credit score was shot. I was homeless. I was looking for a way, you know, just a way, a hand. You know, I got a divorce after 20 years, and we women who have been married a long time, we've taken care of everybody else, but if things break down, who's taking care of us? And so I want to be that person for other people and help those women get support and get back on their feet, because there's a lot of them out there who have reached out to me and said, hey, how did you do it? How did you survive? How did you thrive? You know, the women have seen me now. I got, you know, 800 credit score. I'm making over 6 figures. I'm doing real estate investment. I have a fleet of Turo cars and yards. And I'm like, how did you do this? How'd you come from that and go through all that only to get here? Well, number one is God. But number two, I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave my mother's legacy. And I want everyone to see that we come from a line of strong women, strong survivors. And I want my daughters, more importantly, to see that it is possible to rise through no matter what happens to you. It is possible to rise and overcome every situation, no matter how dark it looks. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And also, I want my daughters to leave relationships where they're not loved and accepted, and not continue to stay and accept less than they should, like my mother did. And I pray that you guys are blessed by my testimonies and my stories. I plan on doing a 30-day challenge and an ebook so that we can be in this together. So if you join my page, my SOAR page, I would love to, go on this journey with you. If you're struggling, if you feel like you haven't been heard, if you feel like you've been misplaced and you're looking to start over, I'll be here for you. Nobody else will. Reach out to me. I'll give you a link to my page and join my page, and we'll go through this thing together. All right, so I'm glad it's guilty. We had a wonderful, wonderful celebration. Me and my family are still floating on a cloud. There's a lot of work still to be done. There's a lot of people who are out there hurting. And I want to continue to reach and touch and help set free people who are in bondage. I wish I could have been that person for my own mother. But I am going to definitely be that person for you all. Because, no matter how much I tried, I wasn't heard in that situation. But no one is going to silence my voice anymore. Y'all have a blessed day.